our office called several leaders from our universities and said, I'm going to talk about real solutions for our students at our universities, for MAP grants and education funding. I called the universities. You know what I was told? Folks at Northeastern Illinois University said they had been instructed never to step out and support any legislation that hadn't either been proposed by Speaker Madigan's office or that had come out of one of the legislative committees that the Speaker controls. They were not to support any other solution to a problem unless the Speaker had blessed it. I personally talked to President Tom Calhoun, the head of Chicago State University, on Saturday afternoon. I said, Tom, and I've gotten to know him, I would like to help Chicago State University. I said, Tom, there's a real bill that has 3 leaders in the House, African-American leaders, Representative Ken Duncan and others, who've sponsored a bill, along with Republicans, to solve Chicago State's crisis. Come to Chicago with me. I drove up from Springfield this morning. Let's do a press conference supporting this bill. This bill has bipartisan support. We can get cash right now to Chicago State University, along with Northeastern and other universities. And you know what he told me? He'd been instructed not to step out with any political leader to discuss any legislation until the primaries were over. That's what he told me. He told me that the very afternoon when that morning he had been part of a rally and a press conference calling my veto of the unfunded $720 million university funding bill an outrage, and saying this crisis was created by Governor Rauner and that his veto should not stand and it's horrible. He participated in that very morning under instruction from Speaker Madigan's office, and then he turned around and told me he couldn't stand with me here to come up with a real solution. Speaker Madigan is managing this process for political gain in the primary election, not to help our students. It is outrageous. We can't allow this to happen. Same thing has happened on the pension bill. You all remember, one of the times I was last with this large group, we talked about pension reform. And there was some chatter immediately afterward. They said, well, the governor messed up. He talked about changing the language and the president can't support it and they don't really have a deal. Ladies and gentlemen, that was all baloney. President Cullerton and I have had an agreement on pension reform for a while. And I told him specifically whatever language he'd like to draft to get our point out, I would sign. He was caught because when he went that day to Speaker Madigan, told him the governor and I have an agreement, we're going to announce pension reform, the Speaker said no. No bipartisan reform, no agreement, no progress. We need more fighting as part of our message during this election campaign. The president is now back on his heels. He's gone silent. He has nothing to say because I've called him out. I've said, I'll sign any language. You can't say that I'm changing your language because I'll sign your language. He's stuck. He can't do anything. The Speaker won't let him. And you know what the President Cullerton said to me in private? He said, Bruce, I've lived in Mike's shadow for 37 years. I'm not going to step out now. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? You wonder why Illinois is in such deep yogurt, ladies and gentlemen? We've got a dictatorship of one individual who cares about politics over people. That's what's going on here. He's hurting people to manipulate an election process. He doesn't care about people. He wants to spin the message to win elections. And he's hurting people in the process. He's doing that in our budget. He's doing that to our university system. He's doing that to our MAP grants. He's doing that to our funding. And now he's got the gall. Speaker Madigan has gone to his members and said, here's what's politically popular. I want you to go around the state. He's got representatives in Southern Illinois, in Metro East, in various parts, in Joliet, in Kankakee. He's got members of his caucus out there saying, Governor Rauner wants to bail out Chicago schools. That is horrible. That should never happen. Governor Rauner is wrong. That's terrible. We stand against bailing out Chicago public schools. Speaker Madigan is having his members go out there and spin that because that's what's popular to say in their districts. He doesn't believe that. He knows it's false, but he's got them out there saying that. We got to call this baloney what's going on here. We've got people to protect. We've got schools to fund. We've got to do the right thing and not hurt the people of Illinois for political gain like Mike Madigan's doing. That's what this is about. I should have 4 university presidents standing right behind me here. A couple of them wanted to come, and I said no. Chicago State said no. Northeastern said no. They've been told by Speaker Madigan. And you know what, I can't blame Tom Calhoun too much. His director of communications is one of Mike Madigan's patronage guys. Madigan's got a spy in most organizations, and he can't do anything that the speaker doesn't know about or hasn't authorized. Tom's in a tough spot. I understand that. But he should be fighting for his students and his faculty, not doing what Madigan orders him to do about an election. He's got to do his job, and he's not doing his job. Same thing at Northeastern Illinois University. With that, I'll open up to questions. Yes, sir.
Tell us the larger question, and we could recite what some people have regarded as your comments downstate, doing some fair amount of Chicago bashing in places downstate at some of the, when you've been addressing Republican officials, some of the county dinners. But setting that aside, when are you going to propose a budget that makes the hard decisions? You have line items in your budget. You talk about making responsible spending decisions. You have line items in your budget that spend $4, $5, $6 billion more than we have revenue for.
That's not true. First of all, let's get to your first point that you made and then quickly diminished. Chicago Public Schools has been mismanaged for decades. It's been run as a patronage operation. They've misspent tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've hurt their students and their teachers as a result. When I look at the numbers, I don't see an option. I either see bankruptcy or massive, massive property tax hikes on the people of Chicago. It'll be crushing for working families. Those tax hikes will be crushing for small business owners in this city. It would be devastating. Rahm Emanuel has said, no, those aren't the 2 options, Governor. I want $480 million from the state to bail us out. I have said no. I've said no. And I've supported legislation so that Chicago Public Schools can file bankruptcy if they think they need to protect teachers' jobs. No teacher should have to lose his or her job. We need to redo the contracts and redo the debt under court supervision. I've also said that I will help you, Mr. Mayor, get the ability to solve your own problems. I'll get you the ability to decide how collective bargaining gets managed, what gets collectively bargained and what doesn't, what can be outside contracted and what not. When you build a new school or remodel a school, how does your competitive bidding go? You, Mr. Mayor, should be given the ability to decide that. They're the schools that you run. These schools don't belong to Springfield. They don't belong to any other community. I will solve your problem. He has said no because Speaker Madigan has said no. The mayor is hiding behind Speaker Madigan just as President John Cullerton is today. Now, Mayor Emanuel has never used the words that John Cullerton said that I told you. Mayor Emanuel has never said those words to me. He's acted that way, though. Yes?
Governor, what about the budget?
I'll come back to that.
It appears that your party's nominee for president will be Donald Trump. Will you support him?
As I've said repeatedly, and I will always say, I am not getting involved in the presidential election and presidential politics. I've got to focus here. We have a challenge in Illinois, and I'm focused 24/7 on that challenge. And I'm not going to comment on the presidential election. Can I go? Let me come back. Let me come back to the budget.
Are you afraid to make the tough decisions that it's going to take to balance the budget without a tax increase?
You know that that's not true. I proposed a budget.
You have line items in there that spend billions more than.
I proposed a budget last year that had significant cuts. I will make the tough decisions. That budget was ignored. That budget was ignored. And then they went on and passed a budget spending plan that had a $4 billion deficit. Since then, we've cut almost $800 million out of operating costs inside state government. We are modernizing our IT system to save hundreds of millions. We're updating our Medicaid program to save significant money. We're changing Springfield and the culture to save billions. I've also changed the contracts, the structure of the contracts with the government unions at the state level. No governor has done ever what I'm doing. We're changing the system. We'll save billions of dollars. It is hard, politically hard. The unions are cranky. I get why. It's okay. We have to do what's right for taxpayers. The unions have gone to Madigan and tried to take away my ability to negotiate because I'm taking the tough decisions, to your point, and I'm doing the right thing. You know what? We have the highest paid state employees in America. Okay, I want our state employees paid well, but I want them paid on productivity and saving taxpayer money. They don't like that. They want that on seniority. When I said no, they threatened to strike, and I said, please don't. I don't want you to strike, but if you choose that, we'll deal with it, and taxpayers will be protected. They said, goodness, we don't like, Governor, you're too strong. They went to Madigan to try to take away my ability to negotiate. They tried to take away my ability to do my job. And fortunately, one Democrat voted the right way on that bill. Fortunately, my veto stood. Right, so that saved, and the largest union wants to spend $3 billion more of taxpayers' money. I've said no. They're already very, very well paid. I want that money in our schools. I want that money in our human services. That's $3 billion over the next 4 years. Very material. Speaker Madigan wants that money into the bureaucracy. I want that money in our schools and with our students. And that's where the fight is.
Governor, are these university presidents who wouldn't show up here today, showed no willingness to show up here today, taking orders from Speaker Madigan, are they on thin ice now?
I've explained what's going on. I've explained it here. You know what the Speaker has told them? This is, again, I haven't verified this directly, but I have good sources. What Speaker Madigan has gone to each of the universities and said, if you step out and support anything that the governor is proposing, I will cut you out of the final budget solution.
But are they
That's what I've been told he has said to these university presidents.
As the chief executive of the state, are these people in trouble now? Would you tolerate?
You know what? I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm just going to do the right thing. I'm trying to do the right thing.
A couple of things.
Yes.
You said higher ed needs a way to be paid for, but Representative Duncan's solution is kind of an accounting gimmick. It's
No.
If it cancels interfund borrowing, you know, how is
That's
that
cash.
happening?
That's cash that right now, under current structure, has to go back and sit idly in some special purpose funds. It'll gather dust. It'll earn interest at 0.5 point. We don't need that there when Chicago State is going to lay off teachers and hurt its students. That money should go productively to help Chicago State. That is not accounting gimmicks. That's a real reallocation of priorities. Yes, you had. Yeah, I'll do that.
Governor, so is the only way to get past the Madigan roadblock ultimately to support his primary challenger, Jason Gonzalez? Do you have a role?
I don't. I'm not going to comment about what's going on in different primaries. A lot of primaries going on around the state right now. Yes, yes.
Borrowing is not reoccurring revenue, so you're just patching a hole. And
Correct.
what do you do next year?
Correct. You are 100% correct. This is a short-term answer. It's the reason I don't love it. It's the reason it's not my first choice. It's a short-term answer to a short-term crisis so Chicago State students can finish their year and their teachers don't get fired. That's what this is about.
Governor?
Yeah, did you have something? You raised your hand before.
Well, I wanted to follow up on Ed's question about Donald Trump as the state's top Republican. Obviously, he's said some controversial things lately. You say you're not getting involved. At what point do you feel like it's your job as the top Republican?
Well, I'll let you know when I think it's my job to state something. I have specifically, carefully avoided making commentary about the presidential election. The one thing I will say, and I will say emphatically, there is no place in American society for the Ku Klux Klan. There is no place in American society for racism and bigotry. I'll say that.
Governor,
Yes.
So taking a look at the big picture, so your budget proposal was two choices for the legislature. Either they compromise with you on reforms, you jointly make some cuts, and then you'll give them some revenue, or they give you authority to make the cuts on your own because you don't have that authority, apparently, you think, because of what the court said. You know, Channel WTTW has a program called Chicago Week in Review, which has been on for the last 30 years. Joel Weissman characterized that with some of the folks here a week or two ago. They're saying your choice to the legislature is your way or the highway. What do you say to Mr. Weissman?
I say that's not true at all. I proposed a budget last year. It was ignored. I've proposed reforms to save taxpayer money and grow the economy. They're ignored. I've offered to take the hard decisions and make cuts. I haven't been taken up on that. And I've said to the Speaker, you make the cuts. If you don't want me to make the cuts, I'll let you cut whatever you want. He's ignored that. All he's focused on is trying to force a massive tax hike on the people of Illinois. And he finally admitted it last December. He said he wants to, as a starting point, go back up to 5% on the income tax and probably higher from there. And let's be clear, that won't solve our problem. Can we focus for a second? A massive tax hike won't solve our problem. That's going to push more employers out of the state. That's going to push more working families out of the state. And we've proven over the years that we raise taxes and then we spend more again. We've got to get to the root causes of the deficit spending, and that's what our reforms are about.
Last question.
So,
Can I
yes,
have one
yes.
follow-up?
Presidents specifically declined to be here today. You said Chicago State, and you understood why. Northeastern president declined to be here today?
And Eastern Illinois
And
declined.
Eastern. What about the other 6 public universities?
Well, the other one that I specifically asked was Western, and they said they would come.
What's your
All right,
strategy?
thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.